Somehow, in modern days, we as humans have developed a huge disconnect with our environment and our food. We've settled for the most convenient foods that are high in calories, low in nutrient density, and filled with unnatural chemical compounds, causing us to suffer from high rates of obesity, diabetes, heart disease, and cancer. This is a very curious outcome since our nomadic hunter-gatherer ancestors ate in a world full of minimally processed, nutrient-dense foods that were largely local and seasonal. This way of eating left our ancestors mostly free from the chronic diseases that we see today. So the burning question that we have to ask ourselves is, how did we get here? As we moved away from our hunter-gatherer lifestyle, approximately 12,000 years ago, we started to depend heavily on crops from farm food and meat from domesticated animals. This initiated the development of more densely populated areas that formed into towns and cities. And as these areas grew, so did the need for more agriculture. This period of time is known as the Agricultural Revolution. The amazing thing is that this revolution seemed to happen simultaneously in multiple places around the world. But unfortunately, because of colonization, agriculture was also forced upon many groups unwillingly, and the increase in societal hierarchies paved the way for inequality, slavery, and genocide. While the rise in agriculture amplified the food production, these new farming practices and new living conditions caused our food to have fewer and less diverse nutrients. Native animals lost their habitats and our soil quality declined. The spread of new disease in these newfound communities increased, and people started to experience a rapid loss of bone density. While many of these consequences of agriculture are severe, many have taken a lesson from the past to improve our future. A growing number of farmers are reversing the generations of destruction through holistic land management practices that reduce levels of atmospheric CO2, build soil health, crop resilience, and nutrient density. The next major milestone in the development of our modern diet was the rapid increase of refined sugar. Our ancestors traditionally ate plants, fruits, fish, meats of all kinds, and even insects, but no processed sugar. Processed sugar was not introduced into the diet until the 1600s, and even then was only reserved for the wealthy. Sugar consumption grew from just a few pounds per year per person to between 150 to 200 pounds annually in just a few hundred years. With the birth of sugary products like cereals, soft drinks, chocolate bars, and ice cream, this shift in consumption helped cause the rise in obesity and many chronic diseases. These easily packaged, sugary foods became much more convenient to eat as people began to grow and migrate to larger cities and towns during the Industrial Revolution. Starting in the late 1700s, we went from producing products by hand to machine-produced products and chemical manufacturing. These processes began our battle with environmental toxins. The time that was spent indoors in unnatural environments increased as the physical exertion that we placed on our bodies decreased and a sedentary lifestyle became more normal. It became much more common to buy food at a market than to grow and raise your own. As people moved further away from farms, we began processing more food to increase shelf life and the ability of food to travel to further distances. This processing caused a rapid decline in our food's overall nutrient density. During the Industrial Revolution, our population exploded, and so did the need for higher food production. Because of this need, in the late 1800s to early 1900s, many companies developed and capitalized, including Dr. Pepper, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and Kellogg's. Many more companies would eventually follow their lead, designing their products not based on maximum nutrient content, but on maximum profitability. They designed their products with the perfect combination of tastes to leave you wanting more. These same companies are also suspected of using marketing techniques to target children who will ultimately influence their parents into buying these products, creating lifelong addicts. This rise of big food has created a normalcy surrounding eating cheap, low-quality, high-palatable foods. The Second World War had a dramatic effect on our modern diet. The need began to grow for foods that were lighter and would last longer. The soldiers also received preferential treatment with nutrient-rich foods such as meat and butter, while the civilians were fed newly invented products such as margarine and hydrogenated oils. After the war, all of these newly invented products remained staples in most people's households, swayed by flawed studies that these were heart healthy. The chemical compounds used for things like bombs in war were later used as fertilizers and pesticides. These changes resulted in a world full of non-perishable, chemically damaged frankenfoods that left us starving for nutrients. Many would not suspect, but the last major milestone that has affected our modern diet is the digital revolution. During this revolution, the way we use and the amount we use technology completely changed. We went from mechanical and analog technology to digital electronics and computers. That has changed the way we work, communicate, and entertain ourselves. Although there are many advantages to this, allowing us to connect, learn, and create like never before, we have also seen some major health consequences. The increased exposure to blue light has decreased our quality and quantity of sleep. Our increased exposure to EMFs could potentially decrease our cellular health. Our physical activity has declined as we sit in front of our digital devices. Our posture is getting worse, affecting the way we move and decreasing the ability for us to properly digest our food. We still do not fully understand all of the consequences of this digital revolution, but a good rule to follow when it comes to our newfound devices is balance. It has been a long road to getting where we are now with our modern diet. Major milestones such as the agricultural revolution, the introduction to refined sugar, the Industrial Revolution, the rise of big food, the chemical revolution, and the digital revolution have gotten us to where we are today. It is important to remember that each and every one of us can reclaim our health by reconnecting with our communities, eating like our ancestors with nutrient-dense, properly prepared whole foods, reconnecting with nature, and moving our bodies. Remembering these principles can help us to prevent and reverse chronic disease, help fight off acute disease, build stronger, healthier bodies for us and future generations. Remembering these principles will help us to redefine our modern diet.